Are you free? Everybody talks about freedom, 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 and how glad we are supposed to be free. Look how free we are. Free, free, free. But the question is, are people free? Are you really free? Or are you just psyching yourself up to believe that you're free when in fact you're a fucking slave? That's the real question. And here's my thought on this. Unless you're thinking freely, you're not actually free. Unless you're thinking freely, you're not actually free. And I'm going to make a metaphor with that. Unless you're actually exercising, you're not getting exercise. Now people have this attitude, oh, well, we have such and such Constitution guarantees freedom of speech, blah. Yeah, but are you exercising your freedom of speech? No, but I don't have to. That doesn't affect it. I don't have to exercise free speech. It's just enough that I have the right to have freedom of speech. That I'm free because I have the right to free speech. I don't have to actually exercise my free speech to be free. Just having the right in itself makes me free. So I don't have to speak freely. If I feel like exercising freedom of speech, then I can. If I don't feel like it, I don't have to. Either way, I'm free because I have the right to freedom of speech. Well, to me, that's like saying, I've got a gym membership. I don't have to go to the gym, but if I want to go to the gym, I've got a membership and I can get in and I can use the equipment. So then you say, well, do you actually go to the gym? No. I don't happen to feel like using the gym. But that doesn't matter if I feel like using it. The point is that I can use the gym if I feel like it, if I want to. And I don't have to if I don't feel like it. So if you have a gym membership, but you're not using it, you're not actually getting any exercise. Can you call yourself fit and healthy? Can you claim that you're getting a good exercise just because you have a gym membership? It's not enough just to have the right. It's not enough just to have the right to exercise, the right to use the gym. If you don't use it, you're still not getting any exercise, and you still can't call yourself, well, if you're flabby and need the exercise, and you're not getting it anywhere else. If you're not getting any exercise, it's not enough to say I could get exercise. I have the right to get exercise if I decide to. You can't call yourself healthy and fit if you're not getting at least a minimal amount of exercise. And just saying that I have the right to if I feel like it doesn't make you fit. And just saying that you have the right to think freely if you feel like it, but you don't have to if you don't feel like it, doesn't make you free. You're not free until you're thinking freely. Until you're thinking freely, you're not free. And merely saying, I have the right to think freely if I feel like it, but I don't have to if I don't feel like it. If you're not thinking freely, you're not free. If your method of thinking, if your manner of thinking, if your mode of thinking is not a mode of thinking that is a free thought, based on free thought, freedom of mental movement, freedom of intellectual movement, if you're not exercising your freedom of intellectual movement, intellectual flexibility, if you're not exercising your intellectual flexibility, you're not going to be flexible. In the same way, if you can say, I can go to the gym and I can stretch, I can do stretching, either stretching machines, and I can get myself flexible if I feel like it. But if I don't feel like it, I don't have to. If you don't feel like it and you don't do the stretching, you don't do what you need to make yourself physically flexible, you're not going to be physically flexible. And saying that you have the right to make yourself physically flexible if you feel like it, is not the same thing as being physically flexible. If you're not physically flexible, you're not physically flexible. And if you're not mentally flexible, you're not mentally free. You're not able to exercise freedom of mental movement, mental mobility. You cannot, if you're not flexible in your thinking patterns and your thinking habits, then you're not free. And so it's like, for instance, somebody says, well, I choose to be in a slavery position. I'm into BDSM, and I like to be chained up and locked up and tied up and have my movements restricted, and it's my freedom of choice to be that way. I said, wait a second. So you're saying, even though you're living like a slave, since it was your choice to live a life in the slavery lifestyle, since you choose the slavery lifestyle, then you're still theoretically free because it was your freedom of choice to be a slave. And my reply to that is, if you're not living freely, you're not really free. If you're living like a slave, then you are a slave. And no matter how much you want to believe that you voluntarily chose to make yourself a slave, you're still a fucking slave, and there's a difference between freedom and slavery. And even if you willingly make yourself a slave, the fact that you did it willingly doesn't make you free. You're still a fucking slave as long as you live like a slave. And if you willingly, deliberately say, I don't feel like thinking flexibly, I don't feel like thinking in a free manner, I feel like thinking in a rigid, prejudiced, inflexible manner, then you're not free. That's my point. And the last point I'm going to make is the same people going around with these bumper stickers and t-shirts that say, freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free. That's an interesting kind of a paradox there in that statement, freedom isn't free. Because the people that wear the freedom isn't free shirts or bumper stickers are precisely the people whose notion of freedom is not a notion that I consider free. Their notion of being free is not what I consider freedom. And if your notion of freedom is that you willingly want to be slaves, if your notion of freedom is your freedom to think inflexibly, or your freedom not to think, if that's your notion of freedom, then I will agree that your freedom is not free. That you're not free until you're free. You're not free unless you're living in a manner which is free.